Hey, feeling good, like I should. When in dark, I walk around the neighborhood, feeling blessed.
Alrighty, let's take a look at our study guide from yesterday. First problem is a simple interest problem. Says the formula right here, I equals PRT. Typically, when I'm going to solve these problems, I'm going to read through and I'm going to identify, did they tell me what the principal was? Did they tell me what the interest was? Just do the 5D process for all of this. So it says find the principal. Okay, so the principal is what we're going to be looking for here. If you earn $300 in interest, so it's telling us that the interest is $300, and it's a rate of 5%, which I'm going to change to a decimal number, and then for the term of 6 years, 6 years. So when I set this up, I is going to be equal to PRT, and since we know what the I is, we're going to write in the 300 here. The principal is what we're trying to find. The interest rate, 5%, is 5/100ths, and the term in years is 6 years. So we need to multiply these two together first. That will become your multiplier that you multiply times P. So what is 6 times 0.05? That is 0.03. So that means that 300 is going to be equal to the principal times 0.3. Okay, so this is a one-step equation now, and we're multiplying P times 3/10. So to solve for P, we have to divide each side by 3/10. So we're going to take 300. P is going to be equal to 300 divided by 3/10, right? Divide each side by the 3/10, so you get this guy all by itself. And so use the calculator. What is 300 divided by 3/10? It is 1,000. So that means that it must have started off with $1,000 worth of principal. Now, if I want to check to make sure that this is right, go ahead and do that. Just plug in the 1,000 here. 1,000 times 5% times 6 should give you 300. So let's try that. 1,000 times 0.05. That would be the amount per month, right? No, per year. For 6 years times 6 years. And there's your 300. Okay, so that proves that we've got everything correct. Here it says Rex has some money, wants to deposit into a bank. If he leaves the money in the bank for 1 year, the bank will pay him 5%. How much interest will he earn if he deposits $400? Okay, so once again, I, P, R, and T. He's going to deposit $400, so that is your principal. And it's going to be 5%. For how much time are we talking? For 1 year? And do they give us any other terms? I think it's just by the year, right? They don't say it's going to be per month or anything. So I guess the year is just 1 year. So if I equals PRT, then we're going to take $400 times 5% times 1, and that should give us our answer. What is 400 times 5%? It's $20. So the interest earned, we're going to multiply that times 1, so it's $20. There you go. That's our answer for number 2. Okay, so I cannot stress enough how important it is for these simple interest problems for you to work through the 5D process. Plug in the numbers, use the formula, and then let the calculator help you solve these problems. Sometimes they're going to give you the P, the R, and the T, and you multiply them together to get you the I. Other times, like here, they're going to give you the interest and 2 of these, and you've got to figure out the third by using algebraic reasoning and dividing at the end. All right, copy machine produces 80 copies in 5 minutes. 80 copies in 5 minutes. How many copies should he make in 40 minutes? Okay, so the number of copies over 40 minutes. The hardest part of this is probably setting up the proportion the right way. So what's your giant 1 here? What are you going to multiply times 5 to give you 40? Well, that's an 8. So we will multiply 80 times 8, and that's how you're going to get your 640 copies. And then on a road map, 1 inch is equivalent to 30 miles. So how many miles would 3.5 inches be? Okay, so let's do 30 miles for 1 inch. How many miles is that going to be for 3.5 inches? Okay, what's your giant 1 going to be? What do you multiply times 30 to give you x? Looks like the giant 1 is 3.5. So when you take 30 times 3.5, that should give you your 105 miles. A telephone pole's shadow. Ooh, one of our indirect measurement types of problems. Maybe I should draw this. A telephone pole's shadow is 25 feet long. At the same time that the shadow of a 6-foot man is 5 feet long. Okay, so let's do this. Here is a shadow. Here is a pole. And here is our dude right there. And we need a beam of light to come from the sun all the way down to there. Is that going to work? Sure, why not? Oh, goodness. Okay, good enough. So what we've got here is we do not know how tall the telephone pole is. So that's our X, that's our telephone pole. But we do know that a 6-foot man casts a shadow that is 5 feet. And we know that the total from here to here is 25 feet. So let's take this ratio here where we've got the telephone pole to its shadow corresponds to the height of the man to his shadow. So what's your giant 1 here? What do you multiply times 5 to give you 25? I think we're going to multiply that times 5, right? So we're going to multiply 6 times 5. And that's how you're going to get your 30 feet. It is how tall that telephone pole is supposed to be. Okay, so here's an example of, I have no idea what the answer is supposed to be, so I draw a diagram, but I do not care whether or not my diagram accurately represents the situation. I'm just trying to get a visual. So here you can see that I drew my telephone pole, and it's obviously shorter than this line here, yet it's supposed to be taller because it's supposed to be 30 feet. Well, you don't know that in advance, so there's nothing you can do there. Just draw the triangles, and the visual will help you put your proportion in order. Who's this person? They can swim 4 laps in 5 minutes. So 4 laps in 5 minutes. At that rate, how many minutes will it take to swim 22 laps? Okay, do you want to use giant 1? Or maybe let's just go ahead and cross multiply here. Cross multiply, you get 4 times x is equal to 110. And then when we divide each side by 4, what is 110 divided by 4? 27.5. So that is our answer in minutes, 27.5 minutes. All right, a newspaper carrier can deliver 180 newspapers in 3 hours. 180 in 3 hours. I guess that works out to 60 per hour, right? So how long will it take to deliver 120 newspapers? Well, we could set up 120 over x, or we could set up 60 over 1 is equal to 120 over x. And I think this one's going to be a lot easier to figure out. Once you simplify that ratio to get a unit rate, now you just multiply this times 2. So 1 times 2 gives you an answer of 2 hours. If the 2 shapes below are similar, what does that mean? It means that all the angles have the same measure and all the side lengths are proportional. So there's a scale factor that will define, you know, what do you multiply times 21 to give you 51? Multiply the same thing times this, and it should give you 34. The problem with using scale factor here is we've got ourselves an equation. So what I'm going to do is this. I'm going to just take this ratio of the corresponding sides from one side, or I should say 2 sides that are on the same shape, and then these are 2 sides that are on the same shape, And so the 21 corresponds to the 51, right? They're both this guy right there. And the 2x plus 3 corresponds to the 34. Trying to find a giant one for this looks like a mess. Now, I might be able to simplify this ratio a little bit, but I don't know. Let's just cross multiply. And so this one's a little tricky because when you cross multiply, you got to multiply the 51 times both the 2x and the 3. So first off, what is 21 times 34? 21 times 34 is 714. And then 51 times 2x is going to be 102x. And 51 times 3 is going to be 153. Okay, so this is a little bit easier to solve than that because we don't have to deal with fractions anymore. So let's go ahead and subtract 153 from each side. What is 714 minus 153? That is 561. And now we divide each side by 102 and see what we get. 561 divided by 102, we get 5.5. So that means that must be our answer. Now, I want to check that. I don't necessarily trust that all of that was perfect. So if I put in the 5.5 here, that's going to be 11 plus 3 is 14. So is 21 over 14 equivalent to 51 over 34? Well, let's cross multiply and see if we get the same answer, because that's one of the rules. That's why cross multiplication works. If two fractions are equal to each other, then their cross products will be equal to each other. So what did we say? 21 times 34 was 714, right? So let's see if 51 times 14 gives us the same thing. 14 times 51, 714. Yes, they are equal, so I feel good about that answer. All right, what do we have? A couple more simple interest problems at the end again. I can't believe I found a bank that will pay 3% simple interest. I'll deposit $7,500 in the account and leave it there for 5 years. So you got your interest rate, your deposit is your principal, and the terms are for 5 years. How much will I have when I take it all out? Okay, so how much will I have? I don't know. Let's just figure this out. So IPRNT. It says here that we're going to deposit $7,500. That's your principal at an interest rate of 3%. That's your rate, and for 5 years. So if I equals PRT, it's going to be 7,500 times 0.03 times 5. So I want to find out what is 3% of 7,500. It gives me $225. Multiply that times 5. So that's how much per year you'd be earning is the 225. But for 5 years, we'll just multiply that times 5. We get an answer of $1,125. So if the question was simply asking, I shouldn't have written that. If it was simply asking what is the interest, you would declare the answer is $1,125 of interest earned. But how much will you be able to take out at the end of this? Well, the $7,500 is your money. You get that plus the additional interest earned, add those together, and that's how you get $8,625. So this shouldn't have said interest, it should have said total. That's what it is supposed to say. And now for the last problem. If I put $500 into an account and I left it alone for 3 years, earning simple interest, and at the end of 3 years, I withdrew $650, what interest rate was I earning? Okay, so you know that's your principal. That's the amount of time. This is how much you withdrew, which is like the total from the previous problem. If you withdrew $650, how much interest was earned? So we have to take our total minus the deposit. That means that the interest is going to be equal to $150. We know that the principal was equal to $500. That's the amount you put in. We're interest rate, that's what we're trying to find, and the terms are for 3 years. So I equals PRT. We know the interest earned was $150. We know the deposit was $500. That's your principal. What we don't know is the interest rate, but we do know that it's for 3 years. So I'm going to use commutative property and rearrange these two guys so that the 500 can be multiplied times the 3 to give you 1,500 times R is going to be equal to 150. So first things, I'm looking at this, it's like, okay, if I multiply something times 1,500 and I get something that's much smaller, this must be a decimal number that's less than 1 or a fraction. So let's go ahead and see what that decimal number is. 150 divided by 1,500 is 0.1. Okay, so that's the decimal equivalent, which is the same as 1/10, which would be the same as 10 hundredths. And it's this that we need to convert to our percent, because 10 hundredths literally means 10%. So that's the interest rate for this particular investment was 10%. All right, so today is the day for you to go through all of those checks for understanding, go back and review any videos of any concepts that you struggled with, make the corrections to this study guide, make sure you understand all of the problems, how to solve them for each of these 2 study guides that I've given you over the past 2 days, and you should have no trouble with tomorrow's chapter test. All right, good luck on that.
Hey, feeling good, like I should. When in dark, walk around the neighborhood.